Hello guys and gals, and welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we're doing our very first creepypasta on a typing game. This one is called Mr. Mix, a popular gaming creepypasta about, you guessed it, a typing game. Does anyone remember an old PC game from the early 1990s called Mr. Mix? It's mainly a typing game similar to Mario Teaches Typing, where you have to type words into a box to make a chef, the titular Mr. Mix, put ingredients into a bowl. Unlike most typing games, however, this game is notorious for having an insane difficulty curve. See, the game puts this words per minute requirement for each level, being as low as 10, on level 1, and as high as 85 on the third. But by level 5, what would happen is the requirement would reach over 500, effectively making it impossible to proceed any further. So one of the main things that people noticed about this game immediately was the background music. The music on the first level was an unsettling pattern of growls that got progressively louder as the level just went on, often causing damage to early computer speakers that were not designed to handle extremely high volumes of sound. The second level had no music at all, and the third had what sounded like an extremely low-quality recording of a hairdryer playing in the background. The remaining two levels had an extremely loud, high-pitched ringing throughout it that caused severe eardrum damage to those who managed to get that far. Another rather disturbing aspect of the game was just the design of Mr. Mix himself. He was a large, round-faced, overweight man with large, beady eyes and these red spots on his cheeks. Most children who played the game reported having vivid nightmares of Mr. Mix speaking to them in a quiet, raspy voice, and threatening them to keep quiet about something. However, none of them could remember exactly what that was. See, one psychologist who saw many of these children reported being disturbed by just the sheer amount of terror on the faces of these children, as they had recounted the details of said nightmares. Many of the children broke down into tears in the whole process, begging for their parents to come and save them. However, no direct relation to the game itself could be determined by just these few cases, as not all children had suffered from the same adverse effects. So, for obvious reasons, the game didn't sell very well, and it remained in this relative obscurity until a few years ago, when PC hackers got a hold of the ROM of the game and started digging through it. So using memory hacking software, they managed to crack the game's code and bypass the impossible 5th level. What they found, however, was extremely disturbing and caused many of them to just quit the whole expedition together. According to the reports these hackers left behind, the game behaves very strangely if the 5th level is bypassed. The game crashes violently and closes, writing a bunch of files to the user System32 directory to the point that the random access memory, RAM, was almost completely filled. See, these files are reportedly pictures of people with horribly deformed faces, appearing to scream in pain and agony, with their eyes appearing to be bleeding from their tear ducts and their outer layer of skin torn clean off in multiple parts of their bodies. If the user attempts to delete these files, the computer just then violently crashes and blue screens, causing this permanent irreparable damage to the user's hard drive. The hackers found that this was caused by a lone byte in the game's ROM that triggered when the 5th level was completed. See, if you removed this byte, they were able to proceed to the 6th and final level. Unfortunately, all the original hackers declined to discuss what they saw in that final level. All of them became extremely paranoid and reclusive, refusing to talk about anything related to the game and showing astonishingly extreme symptoms of what appeared to be post-traumatic stress disorder. Most of them ceased to be able to form coherent sentences, and, within a week, but then within a month all of them had just went missing. After this, all remaining copies of the game were effectively destroyed. To this day, no one knows what was in that game that caused them so much psychological damage and distress. Maybe it's better that way. 2 years after this whole incident, a man was arrested after trying to kidnap an 8-year-old girl from a grocery store. Through DNA and fingerprint analysis, the man was identified as one of the original hackers who viewed that final level of the game. He was wearing a white chef's hat, and had a look of unspeakable malice and insanity on his face. When interrogated, the man would only say one thing. "I'm Mr. Mix. Shh." So, that was Mr. Mix. It's a somewhat popular gaming creepypasta that I wanted to cover a long time ago, but I finally got to it. Now, was it good? Yes, but it wasn't really anything special in my eyes, I'll say. Now let me get into it. First off, it wasn't really cliche-ridden, and the gore aspect of it was inserted okay. My issue is that the creepypasta is a little too short for its ambition. I always say that length and, you need build-up and all that, and it is true. You do need that in order for a creepypasta, a gaming creepypasta, to make sense. If it can be as long as Happy, but if it's built up properly, then that length will make up. It doesn't matter. If it's built up, then that you will feel rewarded reading something that long, or even something that short. Now, moving on, I understand that this is a typing game, but it brought a lot of roads as creepypasta took a lot of turns that we could have tracked, such as the psychological analysis of the children, or the aspects of gameplay, and then we could have segued into the hackers doing their jobs until slowly we uncovered bit by bit this gore pornography. And one creepypasta that does this very well is LSD Dream Emulator, and in my opinion, that's the one creepypasta that really handles this aspect of exposition properly. Now, as far as I know, this game doesn't exist. I've done research, and if we look locally on the land of YouTube, some videos of the soundtrack exist, which I assume are fan-made, and some gameplay exists, but it's something that could be replicated on a graphics editing program. Also, the gameplay it's different quality and different styles for different videos too, so, just looking at that, you can tell that this game doesn't really exist. It's all fan-made stuff. I've done work like that before, dealing with, graphics editing like that, and, it's entirely possible. And with the absence of download links and links in general sources, it's very sketchy. Something like this could even exist. I really want it to exist, though, seeing as it's interesting and it's using this linear mechanic. And it could be a nice way to drive us into a video game hell, as our focus would be on reacting to the words rather than focusing on visuals, and you could use the words to mess with us subliminally as well. Now, as far as technicals are concerned, I know of viruses that will create garbage data to fill drives up. I've seen them before, I've dealt with them before, I've removed them before, I've done a lot of things. But the virus mentioned here kind of doesn't make any sense to me from a wording standpoint. I mean, they say that it fills up System32, the directory, which is located on your hard drive, the Windows hard drive, the boot drive, and then it fills up RAM, which is a different, section of memory. It's random access memory. I mean, it's worded differently, but it sounds weird as those are two separate locations of memory, and it's different when you're dealing with that Windows operating system. And all in one byte too. That's a little sketchy, but let's go on forth. It was nice and it did intrigue, but it ended up in a somewhat laughable way, and if it was built up and explained better, the ending could then have some sense and context, and it would be a lot more better than it is now. So in the end, what would you rate this, and what would you change to make it better? This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Muda Har, and I am out.